All right, if you've been following along, this is the 2008 Toyota 4Runner that I've been restoring and refreshing for my daughter. This is her first car at 16 years old. And today I'm working on the front suspension. We're going to raise this front end about 2 inches, and I'm going to put a whole new strut assembly and new shocks on the rear. And the sets I'm going with is this KYB strut assembly. I'm not wanting to have to disassemble anything there, so I'm going to put a whole new assembly because all this is 16 years old on the vehicle, and I'd rather just go ahead and put all this new while I'm in that area. Same thing goes for those shocks. I'm just going to put all new shocks on there so we can take care of that all at the same time. I've got a 2-inch spacer left. You see those little, it's just a puck spacer because we're not doing any other crazy suspension mods on this vehicle because it is only a 2-wheel drive. The reason I got to raise that front by 2 inches is because we're making room for these Fuel Flux 6 for the Nitto Recon Grapplers 275/55 R20. The wheel has a a plus 20 offset. So that's what we're making room for on this vehicle today. So I'm going to try to get you some step-by-step as I go. And we're going to do this quick walk around the vehicle. You can see how much higher we are here in the rear, and then how much lower we are in the front. I'd say it's at least 2 inches or so, maybe more. So we want maybe a little bit of a slight rake in the front, but nothing too crazy. And I will say that these wheels, they do scrub in the front wheel well areas, just right in that zone. So hoping this 2 inches raising in the front will prevent me from having to do any kind of cutting or anything there. So all right, we're back on the next step. I've already finished the driver's side. I'm just showing you here on the passenger side to remind you what we started with. And just to show you here on the front, we are right around 34 inches, maybe 33.5 from the center line of that wheel to the bottom of the fender flare. There's the old strut and rear shock. And here's where we're at now. So we've got both wheels on, and we have this front strut on with the 2-inch spacer, and we are right around 35.5 now to the bottom of that fender flare. So it's turning out really good. There's a minimal poke out to the side, which I do like. It's not sticking out too far. All right, continuing on with the next steps, I've got the front wheel off. We're getting ready to remove the front strut, and I'm going to show you the tips on how I took mine out pretty easily. Again, it's kind of dirty in here. I'm coming back another time to do all the fender lining spray and everything, but trying to get this project knocked out today. So, all right, right here at the top, you're going to want to loosen the 3 nuts. There's one in the back, so take those loose. And what I do is take the one off the back completely out. So take it all the way out. And then you're going to have these two, leave them on, because when I show you the rest of the disassembly process, this thing's going to drop down and you just don't want it falling out on you. Other than that, you're going to have to get a front end alignment on it anyway. So I loosen here, and keep in mind you need to loosen it from this side, and then I loosen here on this side right here. Don't take it all the way off though. You're just loosening this because you're going to drop this lower control arm. Some of the instructions tell you to take the sway bar end links and all that loose. You're not having to do that. So once you've done that, that's going to allow this thing to swing down. Now, you've got to take the bottom of the strut right there where the shock attaches, take that one loose right there. And then underneath here, you don't have to take the castle nut off. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but there's a bolt here, and there's a bolt, there's a bolt here and a bolt on the other side. It's the 2 bolts that hold this whole lower control arm onto the axle assembly. Take those 2 out, and since you've loosened right there on the camber adjustments and everything, you're going to be able to lower this out, and then the shock tower and strut and everything is just going to drop straight down. So that's how I did mine. And then your reassembly process is in reverse order. The only difference is this thing's going to be under tension, so you're going to have to put a jack on this lower control arm and push it up until you can get it to either go into this lower bolt here, or so you can push it up into the 3 bolts that go into the top of the All right, on this step, we've got the shock and strut tower attached right here. And I've got the bolts loosely in. I've already got my spacer on. So this part right here I want to show you, this moves the bolts 180 degrees. So this bolt actually on the strut used to bolt to the back. Once you put your spacer on, it actually rotates that. So now you got to make sure that your strut is lined back up properly. And you may have to twist this to line up back with the lower control arm. So I've already done that with mine. Put a long extension in there, long screwdriver, something you may have to twist. Keep in mind when you do that though, you want to make sure your spring is still seated properly. So mine is actually still seated down here at the bottom of the cup. So when you're twisting that, just make sure you're not twisting the spring. Sometimes you have to hold the spring assembly and twist while you're twisting down there at the bottom. So very important, make sure you're still aligned in the proper cup assembly there. These are aluminum spacers. This is going to raise it 2 inches. And somebody I spoke with too gave me a really good hint. And they said, once you get this thing in here, if you got the style I have where the bolts are dropping down in there, make a little notch in each spot so you can tell where those line up. Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to see where these line back up. The other thing I had on my strut tower here, these studs were a little long, so I had to cut just there's a little tip that helps the nut start on there. So I had to cut that off with a cutoff wheel. So you may have to do that. So check your clearance that your studs are not sticking up past your spacer. Clean both mating surfaces where this is going to go though, and torque these down really good. I use Loctite on mine, even though these are locking nuts that they come with the new strut assembly. But I still put Loctite because I don't want this stuff coming apart. And I put Loctite up here on these 3. And they do have lock washers and lock washers. So I'm going to torque that down. Once you're done there, you're going to raise your lower control arm assembly, run that bolt back through the way it was, and then you're going to have to put a jack underneath this and raise it back up because you're going to have to compress the shock itself. And then you can run these 2 bolts right here back in. And I put Loctite on all this. I haven't yet, but I put Loctite back on all this before I reassemble it. Like I said, I don't want anything coming apart. And you may want to recheck your torque after you've driven this thing for a little bit. Once it's fully assembled though, retighten your alignment bolts on both sides. You're going to have to take it for an alignment. So there's really, I like to do that. You can mark that before you loosen them. But in my opinion, it's not worth, tearing up tires or anything else on the car. Just get an alignment after you're done. All right, we've got everything complete on the front strut assembly and the leveling, 2-inch leveling on the front with the wheel and tire assembly on. And now I'm working on the back. Let me show you those few quick tips back here. So basically you got a bolt here. You're going to take that out. I've already taken mine out. So it just holds that bottom of the shock on. And then here at the top, there's not a real great place to grip onto this. So since I'm taking this one off, I just put my vice grips here and then I take the nut off. One thing to note, I'm going to show you on the new assembly, what you want to do is put the bottom on first, and you want to get your washer assembly and rubber grommet assembly ready, because once you cut this, it's going to start to go up. It's not going to go real fast, but you just want to have this ready. This piece is going up under here. So the easiest way to remember that is the silver washer has got to go inside that hole. And you want to make sure that that seats up inside there. And then you've got time once it's up. This is the part that goes on the top. So you're going to put the rubber on the top with that metal keeper or that metal washer, and then you're just going to put a nut. And I put Loctite on everything when I put it back in. Here are the part numbers I used in case you're interested. So these are the 2 front strut assemblies. I went ahead and did a full strut assembly. Again, this stuff's been on here for 16 years. No telling how old or how worn out it is. I mean, there was no leaks, but I really just didn't want to risk it if I'm already putting new wheels on there. Plus, afraid putting the spacers on there may not give it enough lift without putting the new strut assemblies. New rear shocks right there. And then this is the leveling kit, if you could see that, if you want to pause at this point to see those part numbers. And I will have links in the video to show you that if you're interested in these parts. If you have a 2008 Toyota 4Runner and this stuff may fit other model 4Runners as well. So, and on the wheels, again, those are the Fuel Flux 6, and that is a Nitto Recon Grappler 275/55 R20. The wheel is a plus 20. You can see it's sticking out just a little bit, just enough. Not too much. All right, I'm gonna take it for a test drive and I'll follow up with one last video for you. Finished product, finished look. We've got that new rear shocks, new struts and shocks up front, new wheels and tires, and it is leveled 2 inches up. Rides great. It's definitely not a mom SUV now. So my daughter's already seen it. She loves it. Appreciate you watching and following along. Still got a little bit more to do on this 4Runner for her. Hopefully this information was useful or helpful for you. And if it was, please subscribe and share. And that's to the point.